The first question I want to ask is about understanding investors' expectations. Now, what would investors typically be looking at in a company, in a startup or a normal business before they decide to invest? What would they be looking at?
Okay, so first off is that by nature, VC investments are highly risky. So anyone who's going into venture capital is looking to find a rapidly scaling business, make big bets, and then win big at the end of the day. So I'll just say now that VC funds are not really interested in steady, low growth, stable sort of businesses. You would not be attractable for VC funds if you have that sort of business. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your business. It doesn't mean that you are not a viable business. It's just not a right fit for people who are looking to scale rapidly. And one of the things with logistics is it's quite niche in the sense that you do need to make a lot of investments in terms of infrastructure, the vehicles, the people. So it's highly capital intensive. That's one. Even if you are on the software side of things, or you are like for us, which is the financing side of things. So it's still capital intensive. So it's how quickly can you scale. So a lot of investors want to know how quickly can you scale. So if you're speaking to traditional investors, it's very easy to say buy one, sell for two. Some people might be interested in that. But if it's a VC firm, it's more about scale. How rapidly can you scale? You hear some companies that who are doing great numbers and have only been with us for a few decades. um, I think that there's some people now who are being born and are using Facebook, but I remember vividly when Facebook started. So, and you've
Mhm.
had like banks that have been here for hundreds of years. So just see that kind of growth and just imagine, can my business give that sort of scale and numbers? And you know that, okay, yes, you qualify for VC funds. But one of the things that I would say is VCs are not the only sort of investors that you can have. And I'm not sure if Tolani and I will delve into that later on. But talking about what makes your business attractive to investors, it's not just about VC funding. So there are different ways that you can raise funds that might not be just the VC route, and there are different things that appeal to those class of investors. So, for example, one thing that we noticed that we started to highlight with Messenger is that there's a social impact for what we do, and that sort of thing it's attractive to people who are interested in impact funding and giving out grants, for instance. So
Yeah.
being able to say, this is what my company does, this is the impact of what we're doing, these are impact numbers. So it shows that aside from showing your traction, how quickly you're able to scale, it might be also important to show the impact of what you've built over a period of time. Yes, investors are not fairy godmothers. Like how do they, you know, benefit from this investment? How is the investment a success for them? I think for whatever kind of business, once you can answer that, you will be more attractive.
I completely agree. Fundraising is very interesting, and I like that you have different perspectives of different types of investors. VC is somewhat difficult to attain for most businesses because you need to have the exponential growth, like you rightly said. And if you're asset heavy, it might be difficult, or if you're selling physical products, it might be difficult to access VC funding. And traditional investors are more likely. That's traditional financing banks and companies, things like that are more likely to come in so long as they can see the margins and they know that they can get something back. And then you mentioned grants, which I didn't even think of asking you about. And so, in all these three types of funding, which would you say for young businesses or growing businesses, which would you say is most easy to approach or most likely to give them some form of funding, so long as the entrepreneur themselves is investor ready?
Okay. So one of the things that Halisi Consult does is investment readiness. So I just want to chip that in now. This is not a paid promotion, by the way. So this helps you also streamline what sort of investors you should be looking at. So for example, if you're early stage, you're just starting out, I think that a lot of people underestimate the importance of friends and family. So that friends and family network, those are the first people who would believe in your business and want to support you. A lot of you, it's not something that you should negate. A lot of business owners have gotten their initial capital from friends and family. So it's nothing to look down on. It doesn't mean that your business is less prestigious. It doesn't mean that you're a less serious business person. The first investment check is usually from someone who believes in you and, quite frankly, is not afraid to make a loss. I would say that how I got into Messenger was by being the first investor in Messenger. So Messenger is my brother's idea. It's my brother's business basically, and he reached out to me saying, "Oh, hey, I want to start this company." And at the time, I didn't see myself being the CEO or being a major part of it, but I was ready to invest because it was from somebody I obviously knew, and I knew I knew and trusted to a certain degree. So that is the first, I think, leeway for any investor, or sorry, for any business owner. You definitely should be able to convince someone to invest in your business. That's one way. And the second way is not everyone is going to give you free capital, but I've seen certain conversations where if you're able to show that, hey, my cost price is X, my selling price is Y, once I get this, I'm going to give you, the amount of money. So that's another way where you can easily have like revenue based financing. A lot of people who are contractors actually deploy that method. People building houses, or people even are trying to sell a product, a finished product, I say, oh, I get my raw materials from China. By the time I package it together, do the shipping and clearing, I'm going to give you X% of my profits or my margins. People make money that way. Aside from looking for capital, some of it should come from you, because that loss is going to be, it's something that you would feel, and it's harder. It's yes, investor money is important, but sometimes just taking a bet on yourself is also, one, risky. It means you're going to put in a lot of time and effort into it. Some people would not invest until they see what has been done by the founder in the first instance. Like, you're calling people to invest in your business. Have you invested in that venture yourself?
So I guess that's going to lead me to my next question, which is how can founders demonstrate that this business has potential for growth and scalability to investors? Like how can they give investors confidence to invest in them by demonstrating their potential for growth and scalability?
Okay, so one thing I would say now is, first of all, there's nothing new under the sun. Any idea that you have, I see some people are very, like to defensive about sharing their ideas, and I can bet you anything that somebody somewhere else is doing that same exact thing. So I think ideas are given to many people at the same time, so it's based on execution. So first, one way of showing that your business is viable is being able to show that if you have nothing on ground, is to show the growth trajectory of very similar businesses. And a tip I would say is to show them in different markets. So let's say you're about to start something here in Lagos, you can show the success of a similar venture in Cote d'Ivoire or Accra or even Kenya, to say, oh, this has worked there. I would say that yes, there are lots of cultural differences in these cities, but just being able to say, this is how these people have moved. I've seen that this is their trajectory. This is what I'm doing differently. This is going to be my secret sauce, because people are going to ask you what differentiates you from that. But being able to show the potential of your competitor or your inspiration in some cases also helps you prove the viability of a business. So there's a running joke for some Igbo traders. If you go somewhere and you don't see any Igbo man in that place, you know that it's not successful. So sometimes
Oh my
people,
god.
no, no, I'm saying this to say that a lot of people say, oh, there's a gap in the market, but sometimes there's no market in the
You know
gap.
I'm getting the
So if
gap.
you see that something is so novel, it's never been done, you have to ask your questions. Like, there's a reason that this road is less traveled for a reason,
Yeah. And you will
and
find out.
you will find out. You will actually find out. So there's a lot of stubborn people, myself included, who will go down that road. But the thing is, when you're there, then you would know definitely why the road is less traveled. And I think that we all see ourselves as outliers. We feel like we're going to be very different. But I have to stress here that how you know that something is successful is because you're able to see the success replicated somewhere else. It's the
Yeah.
truth. Another thing is knowing your numbers. So for me, there are certain aspects of my skill sets that might not translate to knowing the numbers, but these are skills that you can outsource or even have a complementary co-founder, for instance. Being able to demonstrate that your business is successful, you need to show the numbers. You need to show your unit economics. How does this work? I've mentioned buy for X, sell for Y. So you need to know your numbers. You need to know the ins and outs of your business. That's what is going to convince someone to say, oh, hey, this guy knows this business. So even if you've never done the business before, and so for example, you worked in a fashion house, you know all it takes. You work there for certain number of years, and you come out and you say, I want to start a fashion brand. Nobody's going to bat an eye because you put in the work in knowing this.
Yeah.
So this is also another thing about people starting businesses. It's more comfortable to start with something that you do have a bit of a background or experience in. Someone is going to give you money. I'm trying to remember like a good example, but there are many fashion designers that have started as being, will I say, the head of a fashion house, and they move on to do their own thing.
Tom
We've
Ford.
exactly, we've seen it several times. So like Tom Ford, I can't remember which exact fashion
Yeah,
house.
he was the head of. He was the creative director at Gucci, and then he went and started Tom Ford himself.
Exactly. So, for example, if you're Tom Ford and you're working at Gucci right now and you come out and you say, oh, hey, I'm going to start my own thing, an investor is going to be confident because you've learned the ins and outs of that business. So, you might not have zero capital, but your experience in that sector gives people enough comfort to say, oh, hey, this person has done such a great work at this company. I trust them to be able to run their own show. You've
Mm,
had a lot of people. I think one of the things that we read about in Nigeria is they say, oh, the Jumia mafia. These people worked at Jumia before, but this is what they are doing now. So sometimes affiliation to success is also going to help you.
yeah.
I'm hoping that we can be very as real as possible on this call, so of how you can prove to investors that you have what it takes. So no
Yeah.
experience is wasted. You can use your background as leverage to get your investors. You can show the numbers, and of course, you can show what the market is saying about the business you're about to start.